Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have an X1 Yoga from the ThinkPad line produced by Lenovo. This is the fourth generation of this machine, and you can see that it comes in this iron gray configuration, so not black, and the top case here is made out of aluminum, whereas the bottom here is actually made out of a magnesium alloy. So there is a bit of a texture difference in terms of the feel. And you can see that it's got some real shine on the edges there, which you're either going to love or hate. And you can see that this one's had a bit of a rougher life just by looking at the edges, especially around that power port. You can see that's pretty worn down, probably a lot of missed connections. And interestingly enough, this had a few parts replaced, so it's not in perfect condition. One is actually the hinge here. And the neat part about that hinge, before I get too far into things, is I actually have the old one here. And you can see that the Wi-Fi antenna is shoved inside of the hinge. So kind of a neat idea, rather than trying to worry about routing a whole bunch of cables up through the screen for all your antenna, just put them in the hinge. Why not? This unit would have been released in December of 2019, and it does run 8th and 10th Intel generation CPUs. We'll talk a bit about that in a second. The display here, which has also been replaced, which is one of the reasons why we have some of the bits missing here at the bottom, came in essentially four varieties: a 1920 by 1080 IPS, 400 nit, 800 to 1, 72%, and that was a low power display. It was also available in a 1000 to 1 with a privacy guard. And then we jump up in resolution to a 2560 by 1440, which is a 300 nit, 800 to 1, 72% color accuracy. And then the best panel is a 3840 by 2160, 500 nit Dolby Vision, 1400 to 1 contrast ratio, but only 90% color accuracy, which I thought was a bit interesting. So if you're looking for this device to do super color accurate work, you might be a bit disappointed because there is no panel that gets you all the way up to 100%. There were 3 i5 Intel CPUs that came with this, 2 8th gen and 1 10th gen. And then we also had 4 i7 configurations, 2 8th gen and 2 10th gen. And I'll list those all up on the screen here for you to read. All of them use the Intel UHD graphics, and RAM is soldered, either 8 or 16 gigabytes of low power DDR3 2133 megahertz, and that's regardless of the CPU configuration or generation. On the inside, you have a 2280 NVMe for storage, and then a 51 watt-hour battery to drive the whole unit. Options included things like the fingerprint reader, which we see here, as well as an infrared camera for Windows Hello, which is not present on this model, but we do have the Think shutter up here at the top. WWAN was 4G LTE compliant, and then NFC was also an option on these as well. So, one of the things, of course, about the Yoga is that it does completely fold over to do either a tent mode, like we see here, or a flat down tablet configuration. Now, one thing that is gone in this generation is the lift and lock keyboard, but the deck is recessed and the buttons have been flattened out, so theoretically you're not going to have a whole lot touching your keyboard if it's on a completely flat surface. You will also notice, however, that there is an absence of feet, which means that this thing will slide around on a desk. So just keep that in mind. And then let's go ahead and look at some of our ports and features. So on the left-hand side, we have the USB Type-C port for charging. We have kind of what we'd expect, the standard for this generation, the USB Type-C, and then the network plug, but you can also get one docks and other docking solutions that plug right into here. The USB generation on this is 3.1 Gen 1, and then obviously 3.1 Gen 2 for Thunderbolt 3. We do have a USB A port over here, HDMI 1.4B, and then the headphone microphone combo jack. Along the front and the back, we have absolutely nothing. And then on the right-hand side, we have the Kensington lock slot, the exhaust fan, another USB A slot, the power button, and then the garaged stylus pen. Now, this pen does have an internal battery, which has charging connectors or contacts you can see here. And when the pen is inserted, it charges it back up to full. Let's see how this thing looks on the inside. And to get in there, we will need a Phillips screwdriver. And we're going to spin out the screws that are looking at us on the back. We have 3 along the back of the unit, and then we have 2 kind of toward the front. And while we're here, it would be good to point out that just by the fan exhaust right here is actually where the reset switch is. So if you need to do any sort of hard reset, you would just put a paper clip or a pin through that hole, and that would allow you to do that. So let's see, just in case that's part of the disassembly, we'll take that out. There we go. All right, that was exceptionally easy to remove. And now we can take a look at the inside and see what is essentially user serviceable. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi card is soldered to the board right up here. We can see the antenna wires running into the hinges like we saw earlier. We can see a CMOS battery is being, or this is the contact here for the pen charging off of the board. We've got a couple of flaps protecting a few things. Here's our 2280 NVMe. Our main battery, we can see the CMOS battery is underneath as well. So overall, there's really not a whole lot in here to service, as you'd expect from a thin and light machine like this. Let's go ahead and put the cover back on and do some quick boot time tests. All right, so we'll open it up, we'll press the power button. All the keyboard lights light up. And we're into Windows in a pretty short amount of time. Now, this model itself is the 10th generation i5 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So these units are still decently priced at usually around the $500 to $400 Canadian mark in there. You might be able to get them a little bit cheaper if you need to do some work to them. So very much a mid-range solution that would be pretty inexpensive if you want to try a 2-in-1 tablet setup, but you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on a brand new machine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this quick look. I'll leave some links of more information about this unit in the description downstairs. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.